Tonight, we are not just telling a story. We are stepping inside it. Into a world where pain wasn't an accident. It was the architecture. Where your breath had value only when it moved a plough. Where your silence was not dignity, but the leash that kept you alive. Your name will not appear in scrolls, not in sermons, not in any song a bard might sing. But we're going to speak it anyway, because someone should. You were never just a servant, you were the story. That truth waits for you at the end. But first, you must crawl through the beginning. Close your eyes. Let the soft hum of modern life fall away. The buzz of lights, the hum of machines, the ease of warmth. Now feel it. The year is 1627. You wake to a world colder than bone. The air has teeth, sharp, wet, and iron-laced. It smells like rot, soot, animal dung, and sweat that never gets to dry. The fire is already dying. The peat smoke stings your eyes. You try to inhale, and immediately regret it. You'll learn to love the smell, because you'll never stop breathing it. You sit up slowly. Your joints crack like frozen branches. Your knees ache. Your back already protests the act of moving. You reach for your hands, they aren't yours. Not anymore. They're thick, calloused, cracked so deeply that blood and dirt live side by side under your nails. You are nobody. Not a knight, not a merchant, not even a monk. You are a peasant, a tenant, a body, a burden. You were born into debt, into obligation, into silence. You step outside your cottage, if you can call it that. A sagging huddle of wood and daub, its roof slouched like an old man's back, its doorway strung with last year's frost and this year's fleas. You are not alone inside. Mice rustle in the straw. Lice feast in your seams. Fleas leap like dancers between your blankets. They don't ask, they simply take. Outside, the world greets you not with song, but with mud. It clings to your boots. It sucks at your steps. It remembers every foot that ever tried to leave and failed. You are already late. The sun hides behind grey. The sky droops like a wet cloth. The day feels half-lived before it's begun. Your village? It's not a place, it's a condition. A scatter of shivering roofs, a chorus of coughing children, and a scent that never leaves, smoke, manure, mildew, and defeat. But this is not tragedy. This is routine. You don't call it poverty. You call it life. You pass a neighbor. His eyes are hollow. His skin sags over his jaw like old wax. His wife died last winter, not from plague, not from fire, but because the bread ran out, and she gave her last crust to her child. No one mourned her. No bell rang. No words were carved in stone, but her absence lingers like morning fog. And still he nods, and you nod back. That's all there is. That's all you can afford. In your pouch, a crust of rye, a few wrinkled beans, breakfast, lunch, dinner. It must last, because tomorrow the tithe collector comes. And you know what happens if your dues fall short. They won't take your life. They'll take your daughter's blanket, your wife's goat, the seeds you were saving for spring, and you'll say nothing. Because if you say something, you become a problem. And problems are fixed with rope. You reach the fields. The handle of your hoe is splintered, but no one will replace it. The soil is wet, bitter, stubborn. You force it to open, row by row, not because you believe in harvest, but because to stop is to starve. In the distance, a bell tolls, not a church bell, not a funeral, a warning. Soldiers are passing through, not from your lord, from the king, which means they are lawless with permission. Your girls vanish into haylofts. Your goats disappear. Your priest prays a little louder, but keeps his eyes shut. And you dig faster. The sun never truly rises today, but still sweat runs down your back. You labor like a beast, because that's how they see you. Not a soul, not a person, just a set of limbs that can still carry weight. And somewhere, deep in the soil, you whisper curses, not loud enough to hear, just enough for the earth to remember. No one will write about today. No scribe will name your pain. No lord will thank your sacrifice, but we will, right now, right here, because you mattered. You still do. You were never just a servant. You were the story. That line will return. When the winters sharpen, when the masters grow crueler, when your silence becomes a kind of resistance. But for now, just breathe. The mud tugs at your ankles. The wind stings your eyes. The silence hums like a hymn you were born knowing. You are part of this world, and this world was designed to break you. But you are still standing. And that is the beginning of the story. Before your eyes even open, something foul invades you. Not fire, not smoke, but something older. The stench of rot, of leather gone sour, of straw soaked in human damp, of the second-hand sweat of a man long dead, his cloak now your only blanket. You slept wrapped in it again, and worse, it slept inside you. Your back howls. Like stones have grown between your vertebrae. Your neck won't turn without a crack. You shift, and something scurries across your leg. You don't check. You've learned not to. If it doesn't bite, it belongs. You are still in the hut, still lying in earth, not bed, still breathing, though even that feels reluctant. Maybe that's the real miracle. Outside, the light is barely born, but the cold has already found the cracks in your walls and begun creeping across your skin like a tax collector with icy fingers. Your toes are numb. Your stomach quieter than it should be. The fire pit is dead. The ashes are wet. Someone forgot to cover them before sleep. You don't blame them. You might have forgotten too. You grab the nearest beam to stand. It groans beneath you. Everything here groans. Wood, walls, bodies, souls. You push the door open, and the smell hits you. A slap, not a scent. Damp manure, sour milk, waste that never made it to the ditch. Wood smoke sunk into every pore, every thread, every lung. A pig lies slumped by the next hut, swollen, dead, unmoved. Flies cover it like a shroud. At least something came to pay respects. You inhale, shallow. You'll get used to it, or you won't. No one does, really. A child cries across the path. Not loud, not frantic, just broken, bare feet in the mud, swollen eyes, snot running to her lip. Breath fogging like a candle flickering in panic. No one runs to her. No arms reach. She's not abandoned. She's normal. You look away. Here, sympathy is like bread. There's never enough to share. You walk toward the commons. Work waits. Misery waits with it. The mud fights you. Your boots, patched with sinew and desperation, nearly lose a soul. But it's not the cold, not the hunger, not even the stench that cuts deepest today. It's the eyes, from windows, from doorways, from the folds of shawls and the slits in veils. They don't glare, they measure. You're new, or at least newly broken. And in a place like this, that difference matters. Surprise. Historical fact. By the early 1600s, many European peasants lived on such poor diets that they were malnourished by age 10. By 20, teeth were often gone. Bones softened, growth stunted. Most huts had no chimneys, just smoke that lingered for generations, choking life year by year. You try to walk like you belong. But inside you, a voice stirs. They'll know, they'll see, you don't belong here. But here's the cruel truth. The only thing worse than being broken is being whole. Whole people? They don't last. You lower your gaze. You keep walking. You pass the well. The bucket is missing. Again, stolen, borrowed, lost to the cold. No one asks any more. You crouch. Dip a cracked gourd into water that looks more like broth than life. It's brown, still, cold enough to sting. You drink slowly. A beetle crawls across the rim. You don't flinch. It might be the cleanest thing you'll touch today. You wash your face, but the grime doesn't lift. It's not dirt anymore. It's residue. Not on you, but in you. You glance toward the fields. The sun peeks from behind torn clouds, not golden, but pale, sour, like spoiled milk poured into sky. The rye fields glisten, not with dew, but with flood water. The storm 2 nights ago drowned most of the roots. The harvest might fail. Again. No one talks about it. They just feel it in their bones. An old man coughs beside you. Something dark paints his rag. He turns, spits, keeps walking towards the tool shed. No one stops him. No one offers help. They don't want what's inside his lungs. They've buried too many who tried to care. Back at your hut, someone shouts. A woman. Then silence. Then a baby's cry. Then more silence. In this world, silence isn't peace. It's pause. A breath before another kind of blow. You spot the priest now, drifting through mist like a ghost with a book. His robe is patched, but still cleaner than anyone else's. The book, warped by moisture, might be the only one in the whole village. He doesn't speak, doesn't bless, doesn't meet your eye. But he looks upward. You follow his gaze. Crows, spiraling, they always come before something dies. You keep walking, past rotting pigs, past girls with no shoes, past boys with no words, past mud that feels more alive than most men here. And still, your nose burns, your stomach cramps, but deeper, deeper, there's weight, like the dirt has crept into your lungs, like the sky itself presses down behind your ribs. You want to say something, a curse, a laugh, a prayer, but here words are luxury. And you are Nan, and you are not rich. You move, you're handed a flail, wood and chain. Old, splintered. The iron rattles like teeth inside a skull. Your job, thresh, break the barley, separate straw from grain. Hope there's enough left to eat after tax. The sun has barely risen. Your arms already ache. You swing. The stench of wet straw rises to meet your sweat. Blisters bloom where older wounds never closed. You glance sideways. An older man swings in rhythm. Never looks up. You try to match him. You miss. He grunts, doesn't correct you. Just moves farther away. In the distance, the bell again, twice, a death, maybe a birth. Same result. No one stops working, not during harvest, not ever. The hours drag, not like time, like stone. You swing, you bleed, you fade. Your mind wanders to bread, fresh, warm, whole. A crust you can bite without breaking your teeth. It feels like fantasy. You look up, the priest again, leaning over a boy kneeling in wet grass. The boy is shaking, not from cold, from shame. You wonder what he confessed. You wonder what you will, if you live long enough. The clouds deepen. Grey folds into grey. The world darkens, and something inside you whispers, this world is not made for hope. It is made for obedience. You swallow the thought, bitter as mould, sharp as famine, because in a place like this, even hope can get you killed. You walk home. The cabbage is boiling again. One pot, one bowl, not enough. The girl still cries, the man still coughs, the priest is gone, and the crows, still watching. A thought returns. You don't belong here. Then another, or maybe you do. You look at your hands, cracked, dirty, calloused. You clench them. Because in this place, no one can tell the difference between a visitor and a prisoner if both wear the same mud. And tomorrow, it all begins again. Your first task today is simple, not noble, not grand, not heroic. Just stay alive long enough to reach midday. That's it. No banners, no rewards, just 4 more hours without crumbling. The sun hasn't risen, but the cold has. It curls beneath the doorframe, snakes into your bones. Your eyes open slowly, as if waking might crack something inside you. You roll off the sleeping mat. If rotting straw and mildew even deserve the name. Your back protests. Your joints stiffen like iron left out in the rain. Your breath fogs the air and smells wrong. Old metal, sour rot. You run your tongue along your teeth. Loose again. A quiet betrayal. They may leave you before winter does. You check the pot near the hearth. No stew, just grey water, and something floating. You smell it. You don't ask questions. You put it down. Outside, the mud bites harder than yesterday. Colder, hungrier, and your left boot, the one patched 3 times with string and prayer, finally tears open at the sole. You curse beneath your breath. Not loud, just enough for some tired god to hear and ignore. Today, you are assigned firewood and field turns. If you're lucky, maybe you'll be sent to the root cellar to scrape mold from the beams. You'd prefer the mold. It doesn't talk. It doesn't steal. It doesn't bleed. You pass a pig chewing someone's laundry. A dog drags a bone that looks disturbingly human. No one stops it. There are rules here, but not for animals, and not for men with power. Only for people like you. The firewood pile is a lie. 3 soaked logs under a shredded tarp. You reach for one. It's heavier than it looks. Soaked through, warped. The axe is gone. You saw it traded for a fish 3 days ago. It never came back. You grab a stone, start swinging. Every crack of the log echoes not just in the air, but in your spine. By the time light breaks the horizon, you've split barely enough to fill a bucket. Your palms split too. Fresh blisters. Over old blisters. Over skin that no longer remembers softness. Your stomach groans. You ignore it. Food is a negotiation you haven't won yet. You pass the church. The priest's voice drones through the fog, reading scripture to no one in particular. You peer inside. There are no pews, only cold dirt and a warped wooden cross. It smells like mildew and melted wax, and something else, fear. You kneel, not because you believe, but because you hope belief still counts, even when faked. You rise and keep walking. A woman stumbles past, blood between her legs, eyes wide, no midwife in sight, no hand to steady her. You take a step toward her, then stop. Kindness costs too much today. You turn toward the fields. A wooden plough waits in the muck, pulled by an ox that looks older than time. Its yoke is cracked, its eyes dull. You whisper to it. It doesn't hear you, it just moves forward, like a beast that knows it won't see spring again. You guide it, left, right, push, pull. The ground doesn't care. It resists every turn. It clings to your ankles like it wants to swallow you whole. You slip, fall, face first into the dirt. Mud in your mouth, stones in your cheek. You don't scream, you laugh. Once, a sound too sharp to be sane. A sound that even startles the ox. You wipe your face. You stand, you keep going. Because here, even the land fights back. You pass a boy sharpening sticks by the road. Not arrows, not toys, spears. He's maybe 10. He doesn't smile. He doesn't nod. Just watches you. Eyes too old for his body. Children here don't play. They calculate. You return to the village, hands numb, back bent, 2 bundles of firewood strapped across your spine like the burden of someone else's war. You reach your door. Inside, your sister is crying. The grain sack is torn open, all of it spilled across the floor. A mouse found the weak seam. Golden kernels like spilled stars. Too dirty now to eat, too few to matter. She weeps, you don't. You just stand there and breathe. Internal conflict begins. What if I fail them? What if I already am? What if I was never meant for this life? And yet, here I am. You close your eyes. Even the air stings. Later, you go to the root cellar. You scrape white mold from beams with a knife worn down to its ghost. You find a single apple, rotten on one side. You eat the good half slowly, quietly, like it's a prayer. You save the seeds, you don't know why. Hope or madness, maybe both. Evening arrives, but it does not bring peace. A man is dragged through the village. 3 others beat him. They say he stole something. Bread? A hen? Someone's daughter? No one knows, no one cares. They beat him until his breath leaves. Then they walk away. The crowd, stone-faced, like statues carved from silence. You watch, not because you want to, but because if you don't, you might be next. You go home. Your hut greets you like a sigh. The roof leaks again. Rain taps your forehead. The firewood burns too fast. The stew tastes like onion skin and boiled bone. It still feels like a feast. You hand the better bowl to your sister. She doesn't speak. You don't ask her to. You drink what's left. It warms your stomach, but not to your chest. That night, you lie on your side. Rain in your hair. Mice at your feet. The sky outside the roof looks like a hole torn in cloth. You count the drips. 1, 2, 3, 4. You lose track, not of the rain, of yourself. Maybe I wasn't meant for this. Maybe the gods got it wrong. Maybe surviving isn't the same as living. You roll away from the ceiling. You shut your eyes. You try to dream of leaving, of another place, of warmth, of sweetness. But all you see is mud. There is no room for weakness here. Not in your voice, not in your hands, and certainly not in your thoughts. Because even when no man is watching, the gods are. They watch from behind the blue smoke of bitter incense, from the ridged rooftops that curl like dragon spines, from the carved wooden saints nailed to noble gates, their faces frozen in pained benevolence. They see your shame before you speak it. They see your hunger before you feel it. So before you dare to rise, you must bow. The church bell tolls, 5 slow notes. Each one hangs in the mist like a question. It's not Sunday, not a festival, not even a feast day. But still, you go. Everyone does. There is no written law, no decree carved in stone, but there's no safety if you don't. You step into the mud. The path winds low through a fog thick as sorrow. You walk slow, not out of reverence, out of fatigue. Mist coils around your ankles like spirits trying to remember your name. The others shuffle in silence beside you. No chatter, no greetings, only the soft drag of souls through wet dirt. Their heads are bowed, eyes dull, mouths tight. You look just like them now. The chapel emerges, crooked, leaning, its roof slumped like shoulders grown weary with decades of sin. The cross above the door is splintered, the windows broken, patched with cloth. The walls sag inward as if they're trying to swallow something. But still, it stands, like a bruised memory. And inside, the only place heaven might glance at your face, even for a breath. You cross the threshold, and the scent hits you like a wound. Moldavian stone, wax, old blood, and incense, thick and sharp, the kind that doesn't bless but burns. It's not the sweet kind nobles use. This smoke scratches your lungs, crawls up your nose and bites your eyes. But it's sacred, or so you've been told. The priest waits at the altar, thin, chalk pale, his eyes like dry wells. He never looks anyone in the eye. Maybe he's afraid he'll see something he can't forgive. Maybe he already has. He speaks, not to you, not to the crowd, to the air. Latin, the language of saints, the language of forgetting. No one understands, not even him. But that's not the point. The point is to kneel, so you do. Your knees meet cold stone. The wool of your trousers soaks instantly. The damp creeps upward, into your bones, into your breath, into your memory. You bow your head, hands pressed together. Your palms are thick with callus, cracked from frost. Your fingers tremble. Still, you pray, or you pretend to. You've done it so long, you're not sure which is which anymore. You don't ask for miracles. Those are reserved for men with names carved in marble. You ask for something simpler. For your sister's fever to pass. For the ox to not die tonight. For one morning without pain in your wrists. And most of all, you ask not to be forgotten. Not by heaven. Not by history. Not by the person you used to be. The priest walks the aisle. A censer swings in his hand. Its chain rusted, its bowl dented, its smoke unrelenting. The scent wraps around you like vines, like chains. It drowns the rot, the hunger, even your thoughts. That's the point. To disappear into something holier than yourself. Behind you, someone weeps. A single sob, bitten back, quiet, controlled. Everyone knows not to cry too loudly in here. Tears are a weakness, and weakness is contagious. But the gods, they love tears. You lift your gaze. The altar looms. A wooden Christ, nailed in place, looks downward, eyes carved into a sadness too deep for time to erase. At his feet, offerings, a ribbon, an egg, a lock of hair tied in red thread, a broken ring. You've left things there too. A stone shaped like a heart. Your mother's last sewing needle. Once, even your own blood on a piece of cloth. You don't know if it changed anything. But you're still here, and that must count for something. Thematic anchor. You are not just a servant, you are the offering. That thought lingers in your breath, in your skin, in the place behind your eyes where faith once lived. You were taught your suffering meant something, that each wound brought you a step closer to heaven, that poverty was proof of purity. But lately, you wonder, are the gods deaf? Or did they simply turn their faces away? The priest mumbles about sin, about fire, about obedience. Your mind wanders to the cracked windows. One stained pane shows a man holding a lamb. The other, a woman burning. You're not sure which image feels more familiar. A girl is brought forward, kneeling, small, silent. Her hands shake as the priest lays his palm on her head. He says something soft. She sobs once, then stills. Whatever she confessed, it's no longer hers. That's how it works here. You pour your guilt into a larger vessel. So it doesn't drown you. The service ends. No one claps, no one smiles. You file out with the others, feet dragging. Some stop to kiss the stone wall. Others light wax nubs and whisper names of the dead. You just walk away. Outside the fog has lifted. But inside you, it hasn't. You carry it in your chest now, like smoke trapped in a bell that never rings. You walk toward the riverbank, that's where she lives, the healer, too old to be burned, too strange to be believed, too useful to be punished. They say she speaks to ghosts. You've seen her speak to birds. She opens her door before you knock. She already knows. She gives you a pouch of herbs. For the fever, she says. Boil it with mint if you have any. You reach for a coin. She waves it off. I don't serve lords, she says. I serve the ones who suffer. You nod, but you do not thank her. Not out loud. The gods might be jealous. That night, back in your hut, you light your last candle. A stump, melted and reshaped more times than you can count. It flickers, then steadies. You place it before the hearth, and you whisper a prayer. Not to the saints, not to Christ, not even to the sky, but to something older. Something that remembers the cold, the hunger, the shame. Something that once knelt just like you. The flame dances, and you speak, this time aloud, not to beg but to claim. I am not just a servant, I am the offering. The room holds its breath. Something shifts. Software silent but real. You do not smile, but you feel it. A flicker, a spark. Not faith, not yet, but defiance. And that is holy too. The road you walk is not yours. The land it cuts through, not yours. The trees, not yours. Even the wind feels borrowed. You live in a world made of other men's choices, other men's rules, other men's names. You are a shadow moving across soil that was never meant for your feet. And yet, you wake, you work, you endure, because power, real power, is never in your hands. It never was. The air tastes different today. Sharp, tense, crows glide low, silent, ominous. The dogs bark at things unseen. Children stay inside. Mothers keep them close. The whole village holds its breath. Something is coming. You're on your knees in the field, binding sheaves of grain with frayed rope. The straw slices your palms. Your breath fogs the morning air in bursts, fast, shallow. Then you hear it. Wheels, hooves, armor, silence. Not silence like peace. Silence like fear. Like the world itself just clenched its teeth. You stand slowly, and there, at the curve of the road, the cart appears. It's not gold trimmed, not draped in banners. It doesn't need to be. The wood is dark and polished. The horses gleam like carved obsidian. The driver does not blink, but beside him, the man who decides everything. The governor. He's not a king, not in the eyes of the empire. But here, he might as well be God. His gloves are black, always, even in summer. He carries a riding crop he never uses on horses. His boots, spotless, impossible. He has never knelt in mud, never bled from barley cuts, never choked on soot from a dying fire. And yet, he decides who eats, who pays, who disappears. Children vanish behind door frames. Women lower their eyes. Men stiffen, fists clenched behind backs. No one bows, but the village shrinks. Even the trees lean away. You don't look at him, but you feel him. His gaze is cold metal, passing over your face like a knife pressed to skin. He doesn't stop, doesn't speak, but something inside you recoils, like a hunted thing playing dead. Because you are nothing, and nothing should know its place. The cart moves on, and with it the breath returns to your lungs. But not relief, only tension without a name. No one speaks, and even when they do, they whisper. There are always ears. Later in the square the lesson begins. A boy, no more than 12, is tied to the whipping post. His crime? A loaf of barley bread, from the tithe cart, from the stock meant for the Lord's winter table. His lips are cracked, his eye purple and shut. He says nothing now. You remember him. You'd seen him laughing once near the well, chasing chickens, but now there is no laughter left. The bailiff arrives. He smells of sweat and last night's wine. His beard is patchy, his face blank. He holds the whip like it is sacred, like it was blessed by law itself. No one moves. You don't want to watch, but you must. Everyone must. That's how power works. It teaches through spectacle. It shapes memory with fear. The first lash, quick, sharp. The second, slower, heavier. By the 5th, the boy stops screaming. By the 8th, he stops moving. Still alive, barely. No one helps. No one dares. You look away. But the sound follows. It lodges in your bones like a splinter. It will echo again tonight, in your sleep. Centuries from now, historians will wonder what his name even meant. They'll argue over the governor's policies, debate if he raised grain taxes, wonder if his son married into the southern duchy. But the boy? His name will vanish. No records, no stone, no candle lit in his memory. Because to remember him would make him real. And real people are dangerous. Only ghosts are safe. You return to the fields. Same dirt, same ache, same silence. But something has shifted. You feel it in your jaw, in the way your fingers wrap the sickle's handle tighter than before, in the way your mind begins to speak in whispers you were never taught. He can beat a child in the square and still dine with the bishop. He can bleed a family dry and call it governance. And you can't even frown, because your face does not belong to you, nor your tools, nor your food, nor your breath. Everything you are belongs to him. That evening, the steward arrives. A man with ink-stained hands and a mouth that never smiles. He goes door to door, parchment in one hand, quill in the other. He asks questions. How much barley survived? How many chickens hatched? Is your sister still breathing? You answer, not truthfully, not entirely, just enough to survive. Because here, even lies become prayer. That night, the wind howls, not like weather, like a warning, like justice trying to claw its way in through the cracks in the walls. But it won't find you here. There is no justice, only hierarchy. Your place? At the bottom. Just above the worms, just beneath the lash. You're allowed to live. Not because you're worthy, because you're useful. You remember you haven't spoken all day. Not a word, not a greeting, not even a mutter to yourself. There's no one to talk to. And even if there were, words feel expensive. A luxury you can't afford. Your voice costs energy. And today, all your energy is being used for one thing, not collapsing. The morning doesn't begin with sunlight. It begins with frost, not snow, not ice. Just that bitter, invisible film of cold that clings to fabric and bones. It crawls across your shirt, down your neck, between your ribs, judging, always judging. You chew a piece of stale bread, dry enough to choke on, hard enough to break a tooth. You wash it down with water. It tastes like old iron and burnt wood. You swallow anyway, because what else can you do? Today's task, clear the ditch. Again, you cleared it last week and the week before. But the ditch doesn't care. The rain doesn't care. The land doesn't care. And neither do the people above you. You grip your spade. The wood feels slick with frost and your own old blood. Your hands are already torn open from barley threshing. The wounds open again. You don't wince. You just dig, lift, turn, drop, lift, turn, drop. Pain isn't a punishment anymore. It's just part of the rhythm. Your back spasms, your calves twitch, your knees hum like struck bone. Still, you dig, because no one is coming to help, because no one will dig it for you, because work is the only language this world respects. By mid-morning, your stomach cramps. It could be the bread, or the parasites, or the rot crawling from inside out. You double over. A gasp escapes your lips, but no one sees. And that means it didn't happen. That's the rule. Pain is only real if someone else acknowledges it. And here, nobody does. A girl walks past you on the path, dragging a stick through the mud. Her face, hollow, her eyes, ancient. She watches you, not cruelly, just curiously, and then she vanishes into fog. You don't know her name. You probably never will. But somehow, you feel seen, exposed, like she knows something about you that you've forgotten. You keep digging, but your mind, it wanders. You remember your mother, or maybe just the memory of her voice. She used to hum, software without words, just breath and rhythm. You remember it now. A whisper of comfort. So you hum. Quiet, broken, barely sound at all, but enough to keep your ribs from caving in. Still, the ditch isn't done. It never is. You pause, lean on the spade. Your arms are trembling, your lungs are raw. You look up at the sky. Grey, flat, dead. Not a bird in sight, just cloud. Heavy and too close. You whisper to it, "Why am I still here?" No one answers. The sky has never answered. You knew it wouldn't. But the question leaks out of your mouth anyway, because it's either that or scream. You start again. Lift, turn, drop, lift, turn, drop. And then a sound breaks the rhythm. Coughing, deep, wet, wrong. You turn. The old man from 2 huts down, clutching his chest, gasping for air, leaning against a crooked tree. He sees you, raises a hand, not waving, not calling, just reaching. And then he walks away. Slow, dragging 1 foot. You watch, but you don't move. Because here, helping kills faster than sickness. You slump against the ditch wall. Spade clatters to the ground. Your body shakes, not from cold, but from exhaustion too deep to name. You press your palm to your chest, as if your heart might fall out. It keeps hammering anyway. And then it happens. The thought you've buried, the one you've kept locked away in the darker corners of your mind. It floats to the surface like a body after a flood. Maybe I'm not meant for this. Maybe the gods made a mistake. It enters your spine, your jaw, your blood. And once it's in you, you can't unfeel it. You sit, knees in the mud, blood on your palms, sweat on your neck, and a hole in your chest where belief used to live. You think of running, into the forest, into the mist, just far enough to disappear. To stop being a thing that's watched, owned, commanded. But the forest is worse. The last boy who ran, they found half of him. Wolves, crows, no prayers, no funeral, just silence and a nameless grave. You look at your hands, once they were soft, capable of reaching, of holding. Now they're cracked tools, scarred and bent. You clench your fist just to feel something. You do, but it's not hope. You stand, pick up the spade, push your body back into motion. Because that's the law of this place. You can break, but you must keep moving. You finish the ditch by afternoon. Not perfect, not clean, but water flows. And here, that's the closest thing to success. You drag yourself home, 1 foot at a time. The fire is dead. The hut is colder than outside. Your sister is asleep, her face pale, breath shallow. You touch her forehead, still warm. You exhale, more relief than breath. You boil water. Drop the last herbs from the healer's pouch into the pot. Salt, a thread of onion peel. It smells like warmth. It smells like trying. You sit beside her as it steams, and for just 1 minute, you remember what it feels like to be human. Night falls. The wind hammers at the walls. It feels angry, like a spirit with unfinished business. You lie on your side, eyes open, brain open, too tired to dream, too scared to sleep. So you wait. Maybe the gods made a mistake. You say it again, a whisper, a breath that barely qualifies as sound, a thought that no priest would forgive. A thought you cannot unsay, but still, you survive the night. And in this world, that's the cruelest miracle of all. There's a line in the dirt today. You don't know who drew it, or when, but it's there, stretching across the center of your village like a quiet dare. Not chalk, not blood, just a shift in air, like the ground itself is waiting. You notice it the moment you step outside. The crows aren't cawing. The dogs have stopped barking. Children gone. Even the sky feels like it's holding its breath. Something is wrong. Or maybe something is finally happening. You should be working. In the fields, with your head down, your back bent, but the fields are empty. Tools untouched, no one moving. The chapel doors are shut, the tavern's window shattered. The air buzzes with silence. Everyone is already gathered, and so you follow. Not because you want to, because not following now would be louder than a scream. Your feet carry you to the village square, where everyone stands, packed together, tense, watching, but no one speaks. Even the crows land softly on rooftops, heads cocked. At the center, 2 men, one with a rusted blade, one with a sack. You know the one with the blade. Thomas, a farmer like you, thick wrists, quiet strength. A father, a widower. His wife died in the frost. His boy, barely 5, sick and starving. The other, Jacob, steward's assistant, pale, dry as parchment, carries a ledger like a shield. And in his bag, the barley meant for tax, or was meant for tax. The whisper has already spread. Thomas took the grain, not to sell, not to hoard, to feed his child. Some say it's theft, others say it's survival. But no one says it out loud, because standing behind the crowd is the governor. He's not on horseback today, he walks, which tells you this isn't judgment, it's spectacle. This isn't about grain, it's about power. He moves slow, measured, gloved hands behind his back, boots polished enough to reflect the faces he steps over. When he reaches the square's edge, he raises one hand. Silence becomes thinner, sharper. Jacob speaks first. His voice trembles, but not with fear, with righteousness. He took from the tithe cart, he says, barley meant for the church. The record a few villagers nod. Most stay still. No one interrupts. Then Thomas speaks. He doesn't shout, he doesn't cry. I chose my son over your numbers. And that's it. One sentence. It lands like a stone in still water. The governor tilts his head, smiles barely, but then he turns to you. You, he says, and your name, said from his mouth, feels foreign, diminished, contaminated. You freeze. He doesn't wait. The crowd parts like a wound, and now you're in the center. The governor's voice is smooth, but not kind. You work beside Thomas, don't you? You nod. Do you believe hunger excuses theft? It's not a question. It's a trap. You scan the faces around you. Some you've known for years. Most you don't truly know at all. Their eyes are wide, waiting, not for justice, for an answer, and they need you to give it. If you say Thomas was wrong, he might be beaten or worse, but you'll be safe, invisible. If you defend him, you'll stand against the governor, against Jacob, maybe even the church. You'll risk your family, your life, your place in the world, and worse than all that, you risk becoming a symbol. Symbols don't survive here. You feel the weight of every silence behind you, the pull of every old rule you've ever swallowed. We are not beasts, the governor said. Without law, we are no better than wolves. He walks closer. Tell me, does the village believe in law? You glance at Thomas. His grip on the blade doesn't shake. He doesn't plead, doesn't beg. He just looks at you with something worse than desperation. Hope. Your hand curls into a fist. Your legs lock to keep you standing. Your mind screams, I don't belong here. I'm not ready. This will ruin me. But none of those matter now, because you're no longer just a servant, or a witness, or a peasant. You're the line in the dirt. And so you speak. Your throat burns, but your voice is clear. I believe in mercy. The square holds its breath. The governor tilts his head again, amused, maybe, disappointed, possibly. He turns to Thomas. Then mercy will decide. He raises a gloved hand. Jacob flinches. Thomas straightens his back. You hold your breath. Segment end teaser. Hint at consequence. The governor's voice is cold. What happens next, he says, will follow you into legend or oblivion. And then the guards draw their blades. You've stopped counting the days. The sun rises, the sun falls, the hunger stays. Nothing changes, except the weight in your bones, the calluses thickening across your palms, and the quiet, unspeakable things you've had to trade away just to stay standing. You don't live here. You endure here. This morning, You trade 2 eggs for a spool of twine. The twine will bind firewood. The firewood will buy dried fish. The fish will stop you from collapsing again like last Thursday. But those eggs, that's half the week's yield. You do the math, then stop, because math doesn't live here. Here, everything is barter. Everything is bruised value. Everything is need and debt and favors you owe people who owe others more than you. The village doesn't use coins often. Too risky, too rare, too loud. What you have is objects. What you don't have becomes a kind of curse. Surprise fact. A single iron nail can cost a day's labor. A knife is worth 2. A square of linen cloth might cost your best goat. But who decides? Not you. You just obey, or starve. You walk the row they call the market. It's not a market. No stalls, no banners, no copper clinking. Just rags on the dirt. Blankets with rusted scissors, clouded jars, broken buckles, cracked combs, wax stubs. It looks like a graveyard of failed usefulness. But here, this is life. You stop at one spot. A man is selling buttons, bone, shell, even a chipped copper one. You haven't worn buttons in years. Your clothes are tied with string, stitched with whatever thread hasn't snapped from cold fingers. Still, they shine. A strange want stirs inside you. Not hunger, not thirst, but the desire for something small, beautiful, useless. You walk away quickly. That kind of hunger, dangerous. Later, you bind the firewood. The twine frays already. You carry it to the smoker by the river. He eyes you. Short 2 branches, he says. You say nothing. You know the weight is fair. But he wants something more. Everyone does. He gives you half a fish. You chew it slowly, bones and all. You swallow the bitterness the way you swallow everything now, without protest. Back home, there's a new hole in the roof. The rain found it first. You patch it with burlap soaked in wax. It'll hold a day, maybe 2. Your sister is stitching. Old linen, turned to bandages, turned to pillowcases, turned to scraps again. The thread pulls thin through the eye of the bone needle. You watch her. She works like someone twice her age, because the world demanded she be. You wish you could give her something. A sharper needle, a real spool, a chair. But those are luxuries. Even thread is sacred now. Outside, a man sharpens his hoe with a stone. The blade is chipped. The wood handle is wrapped in cloth. But he sharpens anyway, because here, tools aren't bought. They're reborn, over and over, until they fall apart completely, just like you. You go to the blacksmith. He isn't rich, but he's close, because everyone needs him. And that's the only real currency left, necessity. He's hammering a horseshoe. You ask him about your spade. "Bring me ash wood," he says, "a pail of it. Dry you nod. You'll find it. You have to." On the way back, you pass a man skinning a squirrel. He offers the pelt. "Trade you for a copper pin." You don't have one. Haven't touched one in years. You nod politely. Keep walking. But something in your chest twists. You begin to see it clearly now. Everything here is a trap. You spend half your life collecting tools, just to earn food, just enough to collect tools again. Your labor becomes their grain. Your sweat becomes their comfort. Your pain becomes someone else's ease. But you keep working, because the only other choice is to stop. And you've seen what happens to those who stop. One man climbed the bell tower. Another walked into the woods barefoot. A third just sat down in the square one afternoon and never stood back up. They buried him at the edge of the graveyard. No marker, only a stone, turned sideways. A warning more than a memory. You touch your belt. The leather is cracked. It was your father's, or maybe his father's. Once it held a blade. Now it just holds your pants. But you wear it still, because it's the last thing that feels permanent. At the river, children toss pebbles. One finds a frog. They laugh. The sound hits you like music in a battlefield. You smile, then stop, because here, childhood isn't a phase. It's a countdown. A merchant passes on horseback. He smells of spice and wine, red coat, polished boots. A coin pouch that probably weighs more than your entire harvest. He doesn't look at you, but you watch him, because for a moment he looks like something from another universe. A place where food is a choice, where pain is unnecessary, where tools are made, not mourned. You feel it again. Not anger, not jealousy, just grief, for a life you were never allowed to live. You walk home. Someone's chimney is smoking. Peat fire, the smell sharp as despair. They nod as you pass. You nod back. That's how grief works here. Quietly. You don't share it. You just survive it. Inside, the pot is boiling. Water, herbs, one root that pretends to be a potato. You eat in silence. You chew slow. Your jaw sore. You think of the nail you saw yesterday, the one you couldn't afford. You think of the fishbone still stuck in your gum. You think of the buttons. And then you whisper something, not aloud, just in your chest. A question without an answer. How many lives are worth a pair of shoes? You already know the answer. Too many. You were told this life was simple. That peasants rose with the sun, tilled the earth, sang soft songs while they worked, ate bread and cheese under a willow tree, laughed at midsummer festivals, and slept under wool blankets beside a fire that always stayed lit. That poverty was noble. That hunger was spiritual. That hardship built character. But those stories, they were never told by hands like yours. They were written about you, not for you. Not by those who broke their backs beneath a yoke, or buried children in shallow, unmarked graves. Not by those who walked 10 miles for clean water, or wept silently when the frost claimed their last root. They were written from balconies, through glass, at a distance, in ink that never bled, because the truth reeks. It smells like stale urine and moldy straw. It creaks like your spine when you stand too fast. It tastes like cold crust and fever-slick skin. It lives in your sister's cough, and the way you can't remember your mother's voice anymore. No song ever warned you of this. No painting dared show it. No ballad rhymed with blisters or rot. You rise again before light. No stretch, no yawn, just motion. Because stillness is dangerous. Your boot has torn at the sole. You stuff it with a scrap of cloth. Your mother's old apron, back when she was still strong enough to stand. You don't remember her eyes. Just the sound of her spoon scraping an empty pot. You step outside. The wind greets you like a warning. It smells of moss and wet ash. It whispers into your lungs, slow and deliberate. Not long now. Your neighbor's cow died in the night. You hear him weeping softly, not from grief, but because that cow was the last thing tethering him to hope. He'll eat tonight, but beg tomorrow. You want to help, but you can't. You only have 2 pieces of bread left, and your sister still burns with fever. Here, hope is a knife shared between throats. You pass the chapel. The Virgin above the door looks down at you. She's carved in stone, weathered, cracked, blank-eyed. They call her the Mother of Mercy. But her mercy has never lived here. Not in this village, not on this mud-soaked road. You remember the lies. Peasants work only part of the year. They have strong families and simple joys. They laugh, they dance, they sing, maybe somewhere, but not here. Here, you work until your skin splits, until your knees bruise black, until your fingertips go numb in July. Your cousin once made it to the city. She came back 3 years later, not richer, just quieter, as if something inside her had been scraped clean. She never said what happened. She didn't need to. You saw it in the way she folded her hands, in the way she slept facing the wall, in the way she never laughed again. You hear a lute, distant, off-key. Someone strumming beneath a tree, trying to remember joy, or pretend it ever existed. The sound makes you sadder than silence, because here, hope hurts more than pain. You reach the fields. A man has collapsed. Not dead, not yet, just broken. His foot caught in a gopher hole. His ankle snapped. No doctor will come, no cart will arrive. He lies there biting his tongue, waiting for the pain to either fade or take him. You walk around him, not out of cruelty, but because you must. You begin again. Lift, turn, drop, lift, turn, drop. Your hands are blistered. Your name is irrelevant. Your past has grown fuzzy, like a candle burned too low. You forget dreams, you forget desire, but you don't forget the myths. The pastoral lie. You were told peasants were free in their own way, that they lived close to the earth, close to God, in tune with the rhythm of life. But here you've found fear. Fear of winter, fear of famine, fear of your Lord, fear of his bailiff, fear of vanishing without memory. You are not closer to God. You are just closer to soil, because it is always beneath you, because it is always ready to swallow you whole. A traveling preacher once told you, "Blessed are the meek," and you believed him for an hour. But here, the meek are not blessed. They are buried. You pause to drink. Your flask tastes like rust. It's the same water used for washing the Lord's horse trough. You swish. You swallow. You wipe your lips on a rag that smells like rot. Behind you, children laugh. Two boys tossing clumps of dirt. You smile, then stop, because you know what's coming. Soon they'll swing axes, tie their feet into boots with broken soles, bury their friends. There is no childhood here, only a pause before servitude. Once you found a coin in the road, a single silver piece. You didn't spend it. You hid it under a rock. For a week, you visited it, just to look at it. It was the only thing you'd ever had that felt like yours. Then, one day, it was gone. No note, no footprint, no trace. You didn't curse the thief, because you would have done the same. You work until your joints seize, then limp home. The road is quiet, not peaceful, indifferent. Even the birds seem tired. Back in your hut, you light the fire. The wood is damp, it hisses. You fan it with your breath. Your sister coughs. You touch her forehead. She is burning again. You hum something your mother once sang. It doesn't help her, but it helps you remember you still have a voice, even if it cracks. Your neighbors are fighting again. A stolen chicken, a broken fence. You close your eyes, not to sleep, just to block out the shape of this world. And then, from the dark, from memory, a phrase returns. You are not just a worker. You are the consequence. You said it once, years ago, when your uncle died from a festering blister, when your friend buried her baby before sunrise, then went back to harvest wheat. When you saw a nobleman ride past with gold in his teeth, and realized you hadn't seen your own reflection in months. You are not part of the story. You are what it costs to make the story. You are the broken cog that keeps their gears spinning, the soot that powers their light, the dirt beneath their shoes that once had dreams. And still you survive. That's the most brutal part. Not the hunger, not the cold, not even the silence, but the fact that you keep going, that you endure even when no one remembers why. Because here, hope is not a fire. It is an ember. Choking, slow burning, impossible to kill. Tomorrow you will wake again and begin again, not because you believe it will get better, but because the earth demands it. Not joy, not justice, only endurance. Thematic anchor, repeated line. You are not just a worker, you are the consequence. And in this world, no one writes songs about consequences, only about kings, about saints, about glory. Not you, never you. It begins with a single word, not shouted, not carved in bark or smeared on barn doors, just whispered, like pollen through wheat. Unseen, but potent. Resistance! You don't know who said it first. You don't know where it began. But when it reaches you, it tastes like copper. Heavy, sharp, like the air before a storm. It doesn't come as fire. It comes as silence, but a silence with edges. You feel it in the way your neighbor doesn't bow when the steward passes, in the dead rat left on the landlord's stoop, in the way someone scrawled a mark on the chapel wall, a crude symbol, half bird, half blade. You feel it most of all in your own chest. You are tired, but not just in body. Your soul feels splintered. You grip the scythe tighter. It's just a tool. But now it feels like a boundary. Not a weapon, not yet, but a line. And behind that line stands everything they've stolen. The steward arrives late. His cart groans. Wheels warped from overuse and rot. Behind him, 2 guards. You recognize them. Boys from the next village, taken last spring, now paid in bread and steel buttons. They used to laugh. Now they march. They don't wave. They don't speak. They hold clubs. The steward doesn't greet. He just announces 3 sacks of grain from each household your breath catches. 3? That's madness. No one's harvested 1 full sack yet. The barley's barely ripened. The wheat is thin as straw. Murmurs ripple like wind across dry leaves. A woman clutches her child. We'll starve. An old man clenches his teeth. They want us dead. A boy spits in the dust. And you say nothing. But your blood moves differently now. Heavier. Like iron melting in your chest. The steward repeats it. 3 sacks per home. And when someone laughs, not from joy, but because the cruelty is too absurd to swallow, the steward snaps his fingers. The guards move, quick, a crack, a thud, a groan. The boy lies face down, blood on the dirt, not moving. You don't remember running, only arriving. Your feet planted, your hand raised, your voice rising from somewhere beneath your ribs, a place you've never known. Enough! The sound is louder than steel, sharper than a scream. It cuts through the square like truth. The guards freeze. The steward blinks. Something has shifted. Something ancient. A thread once buried beneath centuries of obedience snaps. You lower the scythe. Not in surrender. In declaration. We have no grain, you say. No fat left to trim. No more children to bury. No more skin to flay. Your throat is dry, but your voice does not crack. You speak not just for yourself, but for the mothers who died in childbirth, for the fathers who sold their last blanket, for the sons who never learned to read, for the daughters who bled early, worked early, broke early. The steward stammers. You don't hear him, because you are not just you anymore. You are all of them. Every cracked heel, every split nail, every blister turned infection, foreshadowing callback. You don't know it yet, but today will echo through time. The guards hesitate. They don't attack, not yet, because they see something rising behind you. One step, then another. Your neighbor joins you, then the mother, then the old man, then the girl with the burn-scarred arms, then the shepherd boy whose flock was seized last winter. They step forward. No weapons, just bodies, breathing, unmoving. The steward's face twitches. He shouts for order, but order has already broken. Not like glass, like bone, the kind that doesn't heal cleanly. The guards step back, not far, but enough to say, we don't believe anymore. And in this world, power is belief. No belief equals no power. That night, the village is quiet, but not the usual quiet, not the kind that tastes like damp walls and dread. This quiet is new, filled with breath, with presence, with possibility. You sit by the fire. You haven't eaten, you don't feel hunger, only heat, and a strange, unspeakable ache. Hope. You think of your father, how he once stood in this very square. Back straight, eyes down, paid the tax, even when it cost your mother's medicine. You remember his face after. It wasn't shame. It was something worse. Resignation. Tonight you wonder, did you break the cycle? Or just dent it? Did you rise too soon? Or far too late? Your sister stirs. Her cheeks burn red. You press a rag to her head. She sleeps again. You don't know if she'll see the morning. But for the first time in weeks, you believe she might. Because maybe now, just maybe, the village won't have to choose between grain and life. Outside, you hear footsteps and voices, people in the square again. No steward this time, no guard, just villagers, planning. A petition, A message to the bishop, a refusal, a pact. Something is blooming. Not revolt, not yet, but resolve. You step outside. The moon is low, the stars blur, but the faces, they glow. Not with firelight, but with something else. Conviction. A boy passes with a stick in his hand. He holds it like a sword. Not to play, to prepare. You say nothing, but your hand drifts toward your belt, to the old blade your uncle left you. Not drawn, just present, just in case. You look back at your hut, at your sister, at the small grave behind the tree, at the field you tilled, at the hands you've blistered, at the life you never chose, and you feel something, a crack, not in the earth, but in time, legacy line repeated with new weight. This day will echo through time, but how? Triumph, tragedy, or burial beneath silence? You don't know. No one does. But you do know this. Tomorrow you might not wake, or you might wake to fire, or to nothing changed at all. But still, you'll wake without regret, because today you didn't bow. You stood, you burned, and the sky watched, and the soil listened, and maybe, just maybe, history will remember. Night comes early, not just by the sun's departure, but in the weight it drapes across your back. It doesn't fall like a velvet curtain. It presses, heavy, coarse, like a woolen shroud spun from ash and old smoke, threaded with tiny invisible fears, stitched shut by exhaustion. You sit at the edge of your hut, just outside the door, just inside yourself. The light dies slowly over the fields. The sky greys. The color drains from the world and from your thoughts. All that remains is form, shape. Outlines you've memorized too well. The roof slope, the leaning fence post, the tree whose branches stopped cradling birds 2 winters ago. Everything around you feels like it's been dying in slow motion, including you. Inside your sister sleeps. You can hear her breath from where you sit. It's shallow, but still there. Each rise of her chest is a small miracle. So fragile, you don't dare look too long. Earlier, you touched her forehead, cooler than yesterday, but only slightly. She murmured a name in her fever, not yours. It stung, but you forgave her before the ache finished forming. Names lose meaning in dreams. All that matters there is warmth. A dog barks, far, but not far enough. You freeze, hand still gripping the spoon from supper. The wooden handle slick with old use. Instinct, habit, fear. You've never known a night without some version of it. 3 spoonfuls of mash. Grey, thick, barely food. You chew without chewing. Swallow without tasting. You don't eat it, you accept it, like ash on a brow, like silence at a funeral. The stars come slowly. 1, then 2, then 100, poking holes in the sky's skin. You used to name them, but that was before the nights became too long for wonder. Now you just stare, not in awe, in memory. You once believed someone watched over you. A saint, a mother's ghost, God. You don't believe anymore, but you remember believing. And sometimes remembering is almost the same thing. Almost. You close the door, not to shut the world out, but to keep the fragile peace in. Inside, the fire is small, the shadows large. Your sister coughs again. You adjust the blanket, tuck the fraying corner beneath her chin. There's a hole there, in the cloth. You fold it so she won't feel the wind. You kneel, not to pray, but just to lean, your forehead against the wood, letting it carry your weight, imagining it's someone's lap, your mother's maybe, or someone you invented long ago, when you still had the strength to need things like that. Memory comes at night. Always, day keeps you too busy, but night opens old doors. You remember your brother, his voice low and serious as he taught you to sharpen a blade. Always pull, never push. The stone doesn't forgive mistakes. He's buried now. Last spring, no priest, just a rag tied to a stick. You called it a cross. No one argued. You still visit the spot, still whisper his name, even if no one else will. You remember the girl who gave you apples, the red ones. She married a merchant. You never said goodbye. You just stopped going where she'd be, but you kept the last apple until it rotted in your palm. You remember your father's boots, too big when you inherited them, cracked, heavy, now they fit, not because you've grown, because they've shrunk. Leather contracts with wear, with time, with loss. You breathe, smoke, wool, sweat, old thatch, and something else. Not hope, survival, drier, harder, sharper. You lie near the hearth, no blanket, just straw. It pokes your back, but you don't flinch. Pain only hurts when it's new. Eventually, it just becomes background noise. The fire pops, the wind replies, not with a howl, but a whisper, threading through the wall's cracked seams. You were never just a servant. You sit up, slowly, as if rising might break you. You don't stand. You just press your palm to the floor. Feel the cold. It grounds you, reminds you that gravity still holds you. And that's something, even if it's the only thing. You think about the word legacy, how strange it feels in a mouth like yours, a world like yours, where even your name isn't written, not in books, not in stone, not in song, and still you wonder, will someone remember I lived? Not your work, not your wounds, you, the shape of your thoughts, the sound of your voice when you sang to the goats in spring, the way you held your sister when she cried for your mother, and you whispered back a lullaby you barely remembered. You whisper into the dark, "I was here." No one answers, but something inside shifts. A knot, once pulled too tight, begins to loosen. You breathe again, and this time it feels yours. You hear the chickens rustle. They know the hour. You envy their simplicity. They don't carry questions like yours. They don't wonder if they were brave, if they mattered. They just exist until they don't. You roll onto your side. The hearth glows. One last ember, red like a blinking eye. Open, watching, you leave it be. Your sister shifts again, still breathing, still fighting. That's enough, that's everything. Your eyes grow heavy, not because you're tired, but because the weight of remembering has run its course. The final thematic line. As sleep pulls you gently under, you hear it again. You were never just a servant, you were the story. You smile, not with lips, with bones. A deep, hidden smile. The kind that doesn't show on a face, but settles in the heart. Because tonight, you believe it. Tomorrow may bring orders, or fire, or grief. You may be called to kneel, to fight, to flee, but tonight you rest. The earth remembers, the wind remembers, and one day someone else will too. Even if they never learn your name. Even if they only feel your echo in the stories they tell their daughters. You were never just a worker, never just a body in the field, never just hands serving another. You were the story. And tonight, beneath smoke and straw, that story sleeps. The fire has long gone out. Ashes cool, coals forgotten. Even the last ember has let go. Inside, your sister still sleeps. Her breath is slow, thin but steady. Outside, the stars have drifted west, lost now behind a curtain of low fog. And in the hush before dawn, before the rooster lifts its cry, before the door's hinge moans, before the first back bends toward a waiting field, there is this, a moment, not loud, not proud, just still. No wind, no memory, not even your breath. Everything has paused. As if the earth itself is holding you in place, asking you, gently, firmly, to feel. Because something is speaking. Not with words, not even with thought, but with weight. The kind that sits behind the ribs. The kind that builds in your eyes but never falls. The kind that presses just beneath the skin. And finally begins to speak. 12 days, 12 nights, 12 moments you thought you might break, but didn't. You lived in mud and silence. You drank rust. You buried love without a priest, without a coffin, without flowers. You rose anyway, bent, torn, hungry, but not broken, never broken. And now, Before the rhythm resumes, before the world reclaims its weight and asks for your spine again, you sit. And you ask the question no one carved in wood, no one whispered in chapel, no one dared put into prayer. What was it all for? Were you a tool, a coin, a nameless cog in someone else's comfort? Were you just worn hands and silence, a body to feed the field, or were you more? You think of the girl in the orchard, the one who sang to herself while slicing apples. She vanished with a merchant, but you still remember her voice. She never finished a song, but you remember every beginning. Isn't that enough? You think of your father's boots, how they stomped differently when he was angry, how their rhythm could betray the storm inside him. No one wrote down his story, but his steps still echo inside you. Isn't that legacy? You remember the night your sister was born, your mother screaming, a sound you never imagined could come from her. Your hands trembling, pressing a rag to her head, the baby crying, then breathing, then alive. No one outside your hut knew. But didn't the world change that night? Didn't it? They told you legacy was marble, was stone, was scrolls and paintings and songs sung by bards. But maybe legacy is smaller. Maybe it's a memory passed in silence, a grave unmarked, a soup bowl offered with no words, a song that never ends, only fades into someone else's hum. Maybe your life was the soil, not the bloom, not the fruit, but the dirt that made it possible. And without you, nothing would grow. Maybe that is what they never wrote, that the world held because of people like you. The light begins to creep into the cracks of your doorframe. It doesn't shine. It appears quiet, uncertain, like it's unsure it belongs. You press your palm to the floor. Still cold, still real, still yours. And then you rise. Because that's what you've always done. Even when nothing gave you a reason to. You stand, you breathe, you step forward. Not in freedom, but in defiance of forgetting. Somewhere, far from here, someone may speak your name. Or not. Maybe they'll only imagine you. A woman with rough palms. A man with hollow cheeks. A child who never laughed again after their goat died. Maybe they'll write poems they don't understand. Draw pictures of cottages that were never this quiet. Speak of simpler times with wistful ignorance. And maybe that's enough. Maybe you reaching through their imagination is a kind of justice. Maybe being felt is as powerful as being remembered. Final comment, CTA. So now, you've lived it, you've felt it. But here's the question that sits in your chest now. Would you survive it again? Could you kneel for lords who forget your name? Could you scrub open wounds with vinegar and ash? Could you raise a child on mashed roots and hope alone? Could you carry silence like a second skin? Could you bury a brother in mud and return to the plough the same afternoon? Could you stare at the sky and never expect it to answer? Let us know in the comments. Could you survive a single day in this world? And if not, why do you think so many others had to? You are not just a viewer, you are a witness. And if you made it this far, if you carried these words all the way through the smoke and straw, then something inside you is older than you know. You heard their pain. You felt their hunger. You warmed yourself at their fire. You laid beside them in their straw bed, and for a moment you remembered them. And because of you, they are no longer forgotten. Sleep well, storyteller. The past is quiet now, but it remembers you came. It remembers you listened. It remembers you stayed.